Hey guys, I am Dani and welcome back here to Summer Skye Gardens. In case you are new here, I own a flower farm in Splendora, Texas, which is right northeast of Houston. We're Zone 9B. I am out at the farm today. It's a beautiful day. I've been trying to get a lot of stuff done this week to make the most of this weather. I was fertilizing yesterday and I thought about an idea for a video. I could show you guys all the products I use to fertilize as well as kill bugs or pests or disease. I try not to spray anything that's super harmful to the environment, to myself, to local wildlife. So I try to use as many organic products as possible. Every so often I do have to bust out a heavy hitter, but I see a lot of people confused about certain things, asking questions like, well, what can I use for this product? How can I treat this disease or this pest? What's the best fertilizer to use? So I thought I would take you through what I use, what works for me, in case this might be helpful for you guys determining which product to use. Of course, you're going to have to try it out in your environment, your climate, with your particular pest, but hopefully these suggestions will be helpful. All right, guys, so first thing that I want to show you are the products that I use in my soil when I am prepping a new area or when I'm turning an area over. Now, the first recommendation I have to make to you is to get a soil test, and that could be on a new area, or if you're turning over an area and you want to see how things are going, get a soil test before you put anything in your soil. I have a whole video on how to get a soil test, where to send it, how to interpret the results, and know what to put in your soil. I will link it below if you want to check that out. But real quick, I'll show you the products that I use in my soil when I'm prepping a field. So these are the products that I use. I keep them out here in the shed. The first one is, I really like this pasture fertilizer, the 16616. I get this at Tractor Supply. It's pretty inexpensive. It's a 50-pound bag, so a lot goes a long way. And based off my soil test and the calculations, I put this in. I add some extra phosphate and then potassium, which I don't have the bag for. And then I also use azomite minerals to give like more of the trace minerals, metals, kind of extra stuff. And I will mix this all together in my spreader and go spread it on the field, and it takes like 5 to 10 minutes. It's super fast and easy. I will have these products linked below the video if you want to check them out. And then also, my soil is very acidic, and so I have to add a lot of lime. And so I just get this Pro Ag lime from Tractor Supply as well. It's very cheap, and I will just go throw this on the field. And then after that, I will kind of lightly till it in. And usually doing this once or twice a year works really good for my fields and for growing. So let me talk about the couple of fertilizers that I use on my plants. So this could be the seedlings. When I'm growing in the grow room, I fertilize them about halfway through and then a little bit after I plant them. And then once the flowers are up and running, depending on the variety, I might be feeding it just once, or maybe once while it's growing, once as it starts to bloom, or more often if it's something that, is a hungry feeder. So the first product I'll talk about is my fish fertilizer. Sorry, this is the way my camera is. The writing is backwards. I'll give you guys a better picture right here of it. So fish fertilizer is typically, you buy it as a liquid. This is from Alaska. I tend to like, Microlife products, which are made actually here in Houston. You can buy them online. Some of the local stores carry them, or you can buy them like off Amazon. I couldn't find the fish fertilizer one recently, so I bought this Alaska one, which was just, I found at Home Depot. But typically they're in a liquid, they're very concentrated, and you reconstitute them with water. And I'm talking like an ounce or two per gallon of water. So these containers, they might be a little expensive, but they're going to last you a long time. Fish fertilizer is a very fast acting fertilizer, and it's great at any point for your plant. So this is what I use on my seedlings when they're in the grow room or right after I plant. This is what I use while things are growing to kind of give them a boost. It has typically a higher level of nitrogen, which is great for root growth and all of the, green leafiness. And then once things are either starting to bloom or they're in full bloom, I will switch to something that says like more blooms, maximum blooms. For instance, this pink one from Microlife, it says maximum blooms. These are typically going to have a higher level of phosphorus and a little bit more potassium, and the nitrogen is going to go down. So at this point, you're wanting to really promote, budding and blooming and not so much of the leafy growth. So that's why switching to one of these like bloom products is really great to use. And like I said, I may put this out once or even weekly. If it's something like my chrysanthemums or the ranunculus, they're very heavy feeders, so I use this a lot more often. If it's something like the zinnias, as they're starting to bloom, I might just give them a little bit of boost. And not to say that you have to do this, because I've been able to grow beautiful flowers without fertilizing them, but it definitely helps to get bigger, better flowers, healthier flowers, more flowers, if you give most stuff a little bit of a boost. The only caveat to this is anything that's more of like a wildflower, I do not fertilize at all, because that tends to promote more of the green leafiness and not as much of the blooms. So when in doubt, hold back, but you can always try some. In the end, you're not going to end up typically hurting the plant. It's just going to be more, are you promoting more of like the plant growth or the actual flower growth? All right, let's talk about getting rid of unwanted pests. And I will tell you guys, the biggest pests I have on my farm, which is very common in Texas, are ants. Not only do I have fire ants, which are a big problem here, but also on this property, I have encountered leafcutter ants, which are so great. Basically, they form these huge mounds out in the field, and they will travel far and wide to find delicious little seedlings or beautifully growing plants and pretty much cut them down and bring that product back to their mound. I'm not exactly sure if they're eating it or they're just using it to build their mound, but I have seen them decimate like a whole row of sunflowers in 2 days. So they can be very destructive if you don't get a handle on them early. And then of course the fire ants are just everywhere, and it sucks because you're trying to work. They'll build up mounds, at the base of the plants. They'll build up mounds in your walkways. My older daughter is severely allergic to fire ants. She's actually on allergy shots, and so I try to keep them as under control as possible. But I let people know when they come to my farm, like, look, there's bugs out here, there's wildlife, there's ants, wear closed-toed shoes, wear boots, watch where you're walking. I try to keep things as clean and under control as possible, but the larger your property is, it's just going to be kind of hard. But that being said, I do have to use non-organic products for the ants. I have tried every which way to get rid of ants, organic methods, and nothing really works other than these particular products. So my first one, and I'll put a picture right here, is Bifenite. This is the best stuff for fire ants. You reconstitute it with water, you drench the mound, and you may have to do it a couple of times, but this stuff will really get rid of them. Now, you're gonna get mounds popping up other places. You're just gonna have to really stay on top of them, but this product is really the best thing that works. And the active ingredient is bifenthrin. And I'm pretty sure I ordered this off of Amazon, but if you just Google Bifen or bifenthrin, then you should be able to find one of these products. The other one, and the only thing that I have researched that works for leafcutter ants, is Defense, and the active ingredient is delta methrin. It's expensive, but this stuff works. I use a higher, it'll have instructions on here for how to reconstitute it, but I use a higher concentration initially, and I just drench the mound. They're huge, and I shove my sprayer down inside the hole and drench that as well. And I will go through. The important thing is, I find the leafcutter ants, they will make a bunch of mounds around each other, and you really need to go in and kill them all all at the same time. You know, fire ants, there might be a mound over here, a mound over here. The leaf cutter ants, you've really got to spray them all at once. So it might take me a couple hours to go through and kill them. But really with this higher reconstitution, one application I have found really does the trick. Now, I'll get mounds popping up elsewhere, and ants are typically really active in the hotter months, which is great, you know, to be outside spraying ants when it's 110 degrees out, but whatever, that's what you got to do. But, you know, you will see other ones pop up, but I spray them, I run the mound over with my mower or my tractor to smooth it out, and this works. So, biggest pests on my farm, ants. These are the two best products to use. All right, next up on the list are particular pests that I see on my plants as they're growing. Some of the biggest issues I have are with caterpillar damage, whether it's from white flies, other types of moths that will lay eggs on the plants. They will hatch caterpillars, which really eat up the plants. The best organic product I have found to use, and this actually works really well, is BT, and it stands for this bacteria called Bacillus thuringiensis. Y'all don't kill me on the pronunciation, but I like getting Captain Jack products, but the BT one, and you can find BT in like different manufacturers, but I usually just buy Captain Jack because that's what I've always bought and it works good. But basically at the first sign of caterpillar damage on your plants, you need to be spraying with BT, and you might have to do this multiple times. Now, this is safe for other local wildlife, unless, you know, because it damages caterpillars. If you have any kind of host plants for butterflies, don't spray this on those particular plants if you want to let those caterpillars eat that plant. So an example of this, of course, in Texas is milkweed. What kind of caterpillars are on milkweed? Monarch butterfly caterpillars. Do I spray this to get rid of the caterpillars on milkweed? No, that's why I grow milkweed, is to feed the monarch caterpillars. Or if you're growing like dill or fennel, you might have swallowtail caterpillars on those. Now, if you're growing those as cut flowers, you might choose to spray those caterpillars off, and those butterflies will learn to go somewhere else and lay their eggs. But if you're just growing them for your landscaping and you don't mind some of those caterpillars eating down, you know, that plant, then don't spray it. But any of the annoying caterpillars that get really out of control, like for me, I get a lot of white fly caterpillar damage on my celosia. If I don't catch it early, they will completely defoliate the plant and get up in the flower, and then I can't use it. So as soon as I start to see those pop up, I will heavily spray with this BT product. Works like a charm. I probably have to do it like 2 or 3 times, and then I'm able to save those plants and use them. The other product that I really like from Captain Jack is the Dead Bug Brew. The active ingredient is spinosad. This is really good to use for things like thrips or mites. You can also use it for caterpillars, but for me, if I have a thrip issue or a mite issue, this is what I will use it on. The only bad thing with this is it is harmful to bees while it is wet. So 2 things you can do. Number 1, spray this in the evening because bees are usually active during the daytime when the sun is out, when it's warm. And as the evening approaches, it cools down, the sun goes down, the bees should not be out active. You can spray this on your plants then. And after a couple hours, once it dries, it is not harmful to the bees anymore. So when they come back up the next morning and they're feeding on those flowers, they should be totally fine. Another thing when you go to spray this is check your flowers, especially the larger bees that don't have hives. So honeybees go back to their hive, but bumblebees, carpenter bees, they may actually sleep in a flower, underneath a flower. Don't spray them if they're there. I would wait till the next day to spray, or just kind of give them a wiggle or a little tap and they will move along elsewhere. And that way you can, you know, get them out of the way in order to spray this product. But this has really been the biggest thing I have found to help thrips and mites is the BT product. Another product that I will use more for disease prevention or treatment, and I don't have it here on hand, but I'll put a picture right here, is copper fungicide. And I especially use this as a preventative. I use it on my roses. I will put a little bit of it on my zinnias, and this is just to prevent any kind of fungal infections, or if you start to see fungus pop up, like fungal black spot or powdery mildew, the copper fungicide can help with that. Overall, I tend to not heavily treat disease. I have found certain flowers are more prone to disease, and I either have chosen not to grow them, or I just plant numerous successions. So once they become diseased, I just rip them out and burn them or throw them away. I don't put them in your compost pile if they're diseased, but usually out here, like on the farm, I just burn them. I just don't feel like it's worth my time and energy and the money for the product to go through and try to spray all of these plants that are more prone to disease in order to save them, especially like zinnias. I live in hot, humid Texas. Zinnias are going to get powdery mildew and black spot. It's just how it is. I can usually get about a month out of them with blooming for them to look great, and then they start to get diseased. No problem. At that point, I have new plants blooming, and I will throw the old ones out. I will burn them, and then I have my new ones coming in, which will give me new flowers. So, with a lot of this treating of pests and disease, I think it's worth looking into, are there easier ways to manage this versus just spray, spray, spray? And yeah, even if you're using organic products, it's still taking your time, your energy, your money to go out there and try to treat this. Is there a better option of like different growing conditions? Maybe doing succession planting instead. Maybe not choosing to grow that product because it's so, hard to grow. So think of, these things that I've shown you can really be helpful, but you also want to think about in the grand scheme of things, like what is going to grow best in my environment at certain times of the year that I don't have to spend a lot of time, energy, and money on babying to get the, best flowers. All right, so that is it. That's kind of my favorite products to promote plant growth as well as prevent or treat disease and pests. I hope this was helpful. If you have a question about a particular product or a particular issue, if I don't, have something to recommend with my experience, I will look it up for you. So just comment down below, and I will see you guys in my next video.